You get your ass blown the fuck out. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out the fucking car. Damn, I didn't do anything. Hey, I didn't turn your ass around. All right. You don't do that, okay? Get on the fucking ground. Get on the ground. Okay. Change your ass. All right, I'm on the ground. Lay down. Please change on the ground. I think to tase you. Get on the ground. Lay down. One. Now. Taser. All right. Okay. Break your shit. Okay, dude. Damn. Turn the fuck around. Put your fucking hands on your back. Bitch, put your hands on your back. Quick. Okay. Stop. Knock your ass the fuck out. You guys are really doing a lot right now. Bro, lay down. I'm just trying to go home. Man, if you don't lay down. I am on the ground. Put your hands on your stomach. I am. Okay. Get the fuck back. Stop. I'm not doing it. Please. Oh, shit. $29.38. Where it rains at Ross. Taser was deployed. Suspect is running down Ross. Young male, black, slim build, blue jeans, and a hoodie. Southbound on Ross, where we last saw him.
Okay, got any charges on him?
What's up? I got you. All right, hang on. Ready? All right, just ready. One of the prongs hit the bastard. All right, your car's right in front of you. This is my car, got my water. All right, hang on. Where's your water? Can't see shit. Okay, I got you. Get my water? Yeah, right here. Negative 29.38. Where are my damn glasses at? Left eye? Yeah. Left eye again? Yeah.
Like a camouflage jacket, like orange, green, and red, and it's gonna be bald head.
Plaid jacket. Huh? Martin and all them were over there chasing him.
Welcome to No Middleman. We have our series tonight, the Grifter series, part 1. What happens after the headline? That was the footage from the Tyre Nichols body cam footage from the police officers. We showed the shortened version because we all know how it ended. It ended with another black man losing his life, but from people who look like himself. But that's not even important on this series of grifting or unfinished business. We're going to show you guys 3 angles tonight for 2 different stories. We're going to show you guys the footage, the verdict and the outcomes, and then also the justice, or what we call it, the family residue. We have a major case going on right now that everyone's speaking about, the Nolan Wells case. We also have the young lady in Mississippi that was found hung behind her home, Tanisha. Tiaja was her name. But I wanted to talk about here on No Middleman because we always talk about everything when it's popping, everything when it's hot, everything when it's going to get you clicks. But who's speaking about the family 2 to 3 years later, a year later, the moments where we don't see them anymore, the moment that we don't know if everything followed through, or that moment we feel like the money we gave them was enough to shut them up? So tonight we're going to show you guys two cases. We're going to show you guys the footage, the verdict, and then also what's happening after the verdict was given. So we're going to start off tonight discussing the footage of the Tyre Nichols. Again, we all know how it ended, but how do you guys feel about this situation? I know I spoke about this way before we even started No Middleman. This was pretty much like right after the COVID pandemic. So I did cover it previously prior to we started No Middleman. But I would love to get your two thoughts on this situation if you guys are familiar or abreast to it.
You know, we speak on the aggressions, and it feels like it's a green light on us. You know, just on society, it seems like it's a green light. But this is just this was over. How long ago this was over?
This was 2023.
Damn, time be flying, and it's like it seems like that. Is it a green light on us? Like, is it a green light on the society? Like, it just seems as if the aggression is just so high during a normal, funky traffic stop. And they put so much aggression, like, you know, it's like you can't even say nothing. Like, just keep it, like, are they here to just force the law down your throat? Or are they here to enforce the law? But if it's a traffic stop, how does it end up like this? This everything I've been seeing is very disheartening. That's the only thing I can come up with. Like, other than being outraged or upset, you know, trying to call a militia, it just seems like everything is just disheartening.
I feel you on that. What about you, Ray?
What I did get familiar with the case over the last couple of days, and in reference to what we're, um, of course, what these five gentlemen did allegedly, it was wrong from the get go. There was some background information that supposedly Tyree was dating or had spoken with one of the officer's exes, and it was some the officer sent that picture of him being beaten up to the ex girlfriend. It was a whole lot of background noise going on behind the scenes for the reason that all this went down, allegedly and supposedly. Um, right now, none of those five are in jail. A couple of them have been convicted of a civil, what what was it called? It was a federal charge that they were convicted of, but none of them are serving jail time. They're actually, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. So they've been tried on the state and federal level. They got acquitted on all three state charges. The state did a murder trial, and then the federal did a like civil rights conspiracy charges type deal. Um, and when it comes back to the unfinished business after the trial, you know, Ben Krupp was their civil rights attorney, and I think a lot of people get things mixed up too when it comes to these civil rights attorneys as well. They think that Ben Crump can go towards like criminal charges. He can't prosecute, you know. He represents the family. He can push for transparency. He can pursue legal, civil litigation. He can help with the fact finding, all of the um, detective work, doing their own private investigation. He can help with that. He can challenge the narratives. He can do things like that. But as far as like prosecution, he doesn't do that. And I think a lot of this falls along the wayside because after the criminal prosecution is done, then um, after the criminal prosecution is done, then that's where Ben Crump comes in play for the most part. Yes, you can represent the family from the beginning, but after the fact, um, and I think I was trying to see if um, there was I think I had it here. I think they have a pending date for later on in this year and I don't know, Souls, if he was going to get to that or not, but later on this year for the civil case. So
Yeah.
my apologies for.
You're fine. You're fine. I'm letting you do your thing. Let you do your thing. We
Yeah.
got three segments for it. I'm letting you do your
Okay.
thing. But with that being said, the reason why I wanted to put this series together was because I think the biggest answer that we have to start asking ourselves is, what do we want out of these situations?
Mm.
What do we truly want for the families? What are we doing to ensure those things are being fully followed through with the families? How do we support in getting these things done? How do we not go from one case to the next case to the next case and then forget about those who pretty much started these battles, right? They started these fights. There's parents out there fighting. So this is what that series is going to be about. And then also there's been a lot of people using the word grift or grifter in a very incorrect term. So we will be discussing that more and more throughout this series. But I think the biggest thing is just to make sure that everybody understands that it doesn't matter how loud we are at the beginning if we're so quiet at the end. So we're going to move on to the second part of this, which is going to actually be the verdict or outcomes of this case for Tyre Nichols. And it's going to talk about it here, and then we'll discuss the outcomes here. So here we go.
Verdict in the trial of 3 former Memphis police officers in the death of Tyre Nichols in 2023. The 29-year-old Nichols was brutally beaten during a traffic stop last January. He died from his injuries just a few days later. Prosecutors say the 5 officers involved in the incident did not provide life-saving aid to Nichols. The 3 officers convicted Thursday were found guilty on counts of witness tampering, and 1 was found guilty of civil rights violations, meaning the other 2 were acquitted on that. Nima Rahmani joins me now. He's a former federal prosecutor and president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers. Thanks so much for joining me. What's your response to the verdict, and can you help us understand these charges or these verdicts?
Well, thanks for having me. A surprising verdict, split verdict, but I would say it's essentially a defense verdict. The prosecution here at the Nichols family has to be very disappointing in some of the not guilty verdicts, particularly on the most serious counts. And I'm happy to go through them, but we're talking about 4 counts, the most serious of which are depriving Tyre Nichols of his civil rights, as well as failure to provide medical aid. Those are counts that carry potential life sentences in federal prison. And all 3 former police officers were acquitted of those most serious counts. And I'm happy to go through them. We can start with Tadarius Bean. He was found not guilty of depriving Nichols of his civil rights, failure to provide aid, and conspiring to do the same. And conspiracy, of course, is an unlawful agreement with 2 or more people. He was only found guilty of the final count, which is obstruction. That's essentially the cover-up. And even though that carries a potential 20-year sentence in federal prison, it's certainly less serious than the other counts. And Justin Smith, the 3rd officer who is shown there, he was found not guilty of those same 3 counts. Count 1 being the civil rights violation, count 2 being the failure to provide aid, count 3 being the conspiracy. He was also just convicted of 1 count, that 4th count of obstruction, the tampering, and so forth. Haley did receive more of a mixed verdict. He was found not guilty of the civil rights and failure to provide aid counts, but he was found guilty of a lesser included. That's a deprivation of rights, which did result in bodily injury. He was convicted of a conspiracy and of the obstruction charges as well. So he's certainly the most culpable of the 3, according to jurors at least, but still very disappointing when you had 2 of the other officers that pleaded guilty, that testified against these 3. We've all seen the video footage. I mean, one of the most disturbing videos I have ever seen, but apparently the jurors, they brought the defense argument that police officers were dealing with someone that was resisting, that was under the influence of drugs, that they didn't receive the proper training. I'm not saying I agree with the defense's argument, but clearly it did resonate with some of the jurors. And frankly, it just goes to show how difficult it is to convict police officers in this country.
Help me understand that idea that two pled guilty. So there were two. Did they plead to a charge that then these officers ended up being acquitted of?
Yes, and we're talking about officers who are still facing state charges as well. So obviously there's Ben Crump, you have the family's attorney. I'm sure they're going to be very disappointed with this verdict. But
it's been a long journey for our family.
And in terms of an appeal, I mean, that would seem to be a possibility. Do you think there's any grounds on that, or does it kind of go back to your... Go ahead.
The government, it's very difficult for them to appeal a not guilty verdict. There's very few circumstances where they can do that. Once the jury has spoken against the government, in this case against the prosecution, they're stuck with that verdict. Now, because of the dual sovereign doctrine, these officers may still face justice in state courts. We've seen that in other racially motivated cases. Of course, the victim here was African American, so were the officers, but we've seen cases like that, Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery's killers in Georgia as well. So occasionally the feds and state prosecutors will prosecute cases simultaneously. It doesn't violate double jeopardy because they're dual sovereign. So I think maybe these officers will really face the justice that they deserve in state court where they are facing murder charges.
On that civil rights charge, what would the standard have been that the officers were acquitted so it means the prosecution didn't meet that standard. But in terms of helping us understand why they would have been acquitted, what would the test have been that was necessary to get a conviction, and why do you think they didn't?
Well, it has to be a violation of a clearly established constitutional right. So in this case, it would be Nichols's right to be free from excessive force. And, the question here was this someone who was fleeing? Was this someone who was resisting arrest? Did the officers go, outside their training? And there was a lot of discussion of this Scorpion unit there in Memphis. And did the officers act as vigilantes or a gang? And so I think that's something that, whether it was their training or lack thereof, that must have resonated with the jurors, because they apparently didn't find with at least two of these officers that there was any constitutional violation whatsoever. And it was just covering up after the fact. So it is a high burden to prove that violation. And obviously we know that jurors love police officers in this country, and ultimately prosecutors weren't able to get there.
If you're convicted of covering up, or at least partially covering.
So there you see, ultimately nothing has came about. These gentlemen are actually still out to this day. They're still awaiting a trial date. They were supposed to have a trial date in last year in December. That still hasn't happened. The gentleman, one of the actual police officers, were actually brought into jail again under charges of threatening and trying to have retaliation to the family. So kind of want to have this discussion because y'all are very quiet, and I want to have the discussion about, because we love to talk about things, but this is people who look like each other, and this is why I always try to speak about the system, because it's about the system, right? The same system that we're talking about in Mississippi is the same system that's taken up for these 5 Black officers in Memphis, Tennessee. So how do we combat this? How do we have the discussion about this before we get to the chat?
He said that they obviously have a love for police officers in this country. I say, was it love, or are they in fear of retaliation? You know what I mean? Like, if you can see that this has been happening and this officer goes back to work and this one gets suspended and this one goes back to work and they leave of absence and this one goes back to work, be like, man, I can't even, you know what I mean? What do? Do we go and get jurors from other counties, other jurisdictions to come in and be jurors to finally convict these officers of their heinous crime? They beat that boy like that. This system is tainted all the way around to where you can't even hold the powers to any standard. They got us in fear. But in fear of who? Because if it's the system and it's the powers that be, then we're just subjects. We're just subjects, bro. We're just a number. We're expendable. It's just hoping that it's not your time when that time comes. This is despicable. This is absolutely despicable.
Does policy
And
need to
these,
change?
I think a lot of things need to change, and that's why I wanted to have the conversation. That's why I'm asking you guys, because I'm always a facts on facts person, very even keel, balance both sides. I don't try to throw race and this and because we have so many situations just like this every day. So where do we draw the line? Where do we say this is what we need the outcome to be? Like, what does the outcome need to be? Like are we now just taking acceptable losses? Is everything
that's what it seems.
Go ahead. Yeah. Is everything just about clicks? Is everything just for people to get their page popping for the time being? Because at the end of the day, we're not speaking about the true outcome, right? Because a payday doesn't bring a life back. And that's, to me, that's the, and I heard what Rain said earlier, and I think it's one of those things too that we have to really start speaking. What do the families truly want? Because if we know that Ben Crump's role is not to bring the ultimate decision, right? So how do we find another Ben Crump in another area who does bring justice? You see what I mean? Like, how do we pilot that? How do we bring that next Ben Crump that's in the level that's going to bring justice? Because at this point, we're almost saying it's a toe tag price for our family members and friends.
Yeah. Well, that's why here on No Middleman, we do have 3 different perspectives. You know, it's going to be some emotion. There's going to be some logic. There's going to be some facts, trying to get to a certain understanding. But with this, it's like these particular cases that we cover on this channel on a regular basis, it's like it's really putting you in a position to say, not what we're gonna do, is a what can we do. And that's what I think everybody that tunes in, we come to that conclusion, like, what can we do? Because there's more that won't. There's more that won't that will. Like to bear arms and go and storm the Capitol. You know what I mean? Like, everybody saw, man, that was crazy, man. They did that. Was it? Everybody felt like that was wrong because maybe the color, or because or people really was trying to take their government back. Now you see what's happening. What if they seen it beforehand, and now you see what's happening now? Now, should we be a J6? Because you see what's happening. We're consistently under attack. We're consistently under attack. And I'm talking about the American people. It's not just the black folks, white folks, Spanish. It's everybody. We're all under attack. Now they're trying to attack our water supply. It's more than it's an in totality situation. This has gotten out of control. We got to take our government back.
What's your thoughts, Rain?
I think somewhere down the line has to be some kind of policy change, especially when it comes to these officers who go overboard on these traffic stops, especially in a case like Tyre Nichols. So when these officers were arrested, when these charges were brought up against these officers, I think it should have gone to a different location, out of that jurisdiction where nobody knows them. Period.
My thing is this, though. So right now, the world is covering a case that has zero evidence.
Right.
Like not saying that it's not evidence out there. Mm-hmm. It's just there's no question right now. Nobody really has a definitive answer of what happened, right? From the evidence we're giving. But then you'll have a case like this where it's all there in front of you. The excessive force is there. Everything they did was all on body cam. and we're still getting the same results from a person who has zero evidence to a person who you can see every piece of evidence.
It's just like a slap in the face.
And but is it a slap in the face, or have we just started to accept this? Because again, I was on the platform when this happened. Like, a bunch of people did not cover this Memphis police officer case. This wasn't even the people you want to talk about, like even the popular people, like they weren't covering this. You know what I mean? Like, even myself, I started covering it after seeing it on Millionaire Morning Show. My response to it was a reaction video to what I seen and watched. And I understand what everybody's saying about, like, everybody got these sayings and they kept the files and colorblind is just blind. No, we're not talking about that at this point, because this case has nothing to do with that. This case is 5 black men killed another black man, and they supposed to be in the line of duty. So my question is, are we just accepting, like, kind of like what Plug was just saying, are we just taking acceptable losses? Because at that point, if you're not here to talk about questions, or you're not here to bring any solutions, you almost fall into the grifter error. You know what I mean? So we'll get to some of these comments, and then we'll get on to the last segment of this. And then Rain actually has a very good on the radar that probably talks about how we could, one of the first steps to taking care of this, or at least getting some moves on there. So
Penny said, first of all, bro, you out of shape breathing that hard. Take several seats, sir. Super Mac said at LP, laughing. Little Penny. Super Mac said he needs some milk. Penny said, if y'all didn't spend that unnecessary energy roughing up the young man, you might have had the energy to run after him. Shaking my head. Super Mac said, the description got me slim build, young black, explained the breathing. He was not ready. Penny said, the worst part is he was complying. Big Sco was in the building. He dropped the umbrellas, the plug outlets and all that stuff. He said, not got the red light special. He done changed it now. Plug said, yeah, Sco. Sco said, I see the studio coming together. It's looking good. Supermax said, 26. If you recognize the similarities, same old story, prove that you as the dominant economic and political force is not actively still stalking and killing our youth. You can't. Uncle Plug said, thank you. Richard said, a PSU, I think it was, is a provider of electricity. The motherboard just uses it to distribute electricity evenly to all connected devices in need of some. Uncle Plug said, no jail time. Plug said 3 black cops and 1 black victim. Uncle Plug said, that's bad business. Was there any drugs in his system? I don't think so. Not anything that I read about. It's insulting. Penny said it's insulting that we can march and protest, throwing the first punch, but are nowhere to be seen when it comes to finishing the fight. Not much of the threat, just smoke and mirrors.
yeah.
Penny, when you coming up? I'm going to say it every time, Penny. Uncle Plus said, come on the scene. Crump on the scene. You got money. Uncle Plus said, and that's it. No justice. Marty said, I feel like with this case, they look at it from law enforcement instead of justice. They are trying these cases where the police served. They need to move all of these cases out of the jurisdiction. I agree, Marty. She said, I have said this before, but we are under attack and the justice system is corrupt. Supermax said, colorblind is just blind. We kept the file sold and the results been in. Them is them, even when it's us. Why do these black cops think it's okay to kill us? Not a question. Penny says, civil rights justice has been diluted to media prostitution. Answers and justice reside in other places that never get the spotlight. Uncle Plus said, who can we trust when it comes to policy change?
Mm-hmm.
That's a
That's a
good
good
question.
question.
Supermax said control is going to affect everyone negatively, but who wields majority control? Again, not a question. We have the answer souls in the codes. Ask Classic for a copy of the files. Uncle Plus said, who wore a badge? Penny said, policy and jurisdiction won't matter if universal corruption is supported by authoritative unity. The government is always right. Uncle Plug said, definitely corruption. Plug said, executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch. Penny said, the people are supposed to check the government and we are failing. The government has to be bought and sold.
Yeah.
Richard said, I'm not trading. I'm trading not to be rude. The other kids are dumb. The one I got is smart. Excuse me, y'all. Uncle Plus said, all corrupt. What do we do? Supermax said, Classic said, remember the police started as slave catchers. Supermax said, not them and Uncle Plug.
So we're gonna move on to the final part of the Tyre Nichols. And this is going to be the segment for the Justice and Family Residue ongoing trials for Tyre Nichols. So here we go.
Beating of a man by It's been 3 years since the deadly beating of a man by Memphis police officers. People remember Tyre Nichols last night at a candlelight vigil. Officers pulled him over in 2023 on suspicion of reckless driving. He ran after he was pulled over. Nichols was then pepper sprayed, beaten, and hit with a taser. He was hospitalized and died from his injuries 3 days later. His mother and father both spoke last night at a vigil.
3 years later, and we still don't have any justice for my son. The whole world saw what happened to my son. I can't continue to live like this. We need justice so that we can heal.
All I can do is hope and pray that this year, all this will be over with. Say it to the mic. But you know what? Even if it is over with, next year we'll be right back here.
5 former Memphis police officers charged for their involvement in Nichols' death. Last year, 3 of them were found not guilty on state charges, but a U.S. district judge has since approved a request for new trials for the 3 men. The other 2 officers involved pleaded guilty and testified against the 3 who maintained their innocence. A 6th officer was also fired, but not charged. He was hospitalized and died from his injuries 3 days later. His mother and father both spoke last night at a vigil.
3 years later, and we still don't have any justice.
So there you have it from the mother's mouth. 3 years later, and we still have no justice. And I think this is going to be the theme of the series. You guys are going to see a lot of cases that started very loud and end very quietly. We get on here and we want to have all these one-liners and we want to have all these funny things to say, but we're not helping the families at all. This is a mother, a family, a father who now have residue from a crime. Yeah, they got a check. But you know what that check goes towards? Everybody that they're still trying to use to fight to find justice for their son. And that's the questions I'm asking. I'm tired of all this rhetoric and everybody cracking this. And no, we're not cracking anything because we're ending with the same result. So are we okay with the acceptable losses? And if that's the case, we should stop covering these things. You should talk about it and leave it alone. Because if you don't want to follow through, what's the point of getting everybody else up in an uproar? What's the reason for judging everybody and causing more division if you really don't want justice for the family? Because this young lady just told us that 3 years later, and they still are seeking justice. I don't know about y'all, but if somebody was on my team fighting for my child, I would like you to be at every vigil I do, every anniversary.
Yeah.
So how do y'all feel about this? Because this is the ultimate thing, the unfinished business after the headlines go, because y'all are going to see a lot. Even the next case that we cover tonight, y'all are going to see that it's a lot of families out here still hurting, still trying to get justice, still trying to find some answers. So what are we trying to do? I just want to be part of the solution.
Let me ask you a question. When someone like a Ben Crump comes in and he hits you at a time where everything is so emotional,
yeah,
and you're downtrodden and you're distraught because of a loss of a loved one, what happens when you tell him, "Nah, we good. You can go and get up out of here, man"? What you think happens after that? Like, because like, let's just,
go ahead.
Because like in this recent case, he's there and we still a month later, nothing. You know what I mean? Like nothing. Like no new evidence. Like, no, there's a turn in the story. Oh, everybody hyped up. Like, it's nothing. Like, it's nothing. Like, for me to hear folks say, "Oh, that's my best friend. That's my best friend. Oh, that's my son. That's my son." Like, the next day, everybody was eating breakfast. The next day, people are, focusing on making arrangements. You know what I mean? While all that's going on, like, who fights for the people who has to go and still do the normal things to bury a person? Do you know all that goes in? You got to find it, find the price, if the person had insurance or didn't have insurance, like all that's going on. Who are really in these people corners while all this is going on? Because that's a lot to take it. And then to have them murdered, and didn't have to do all that. It's even difficult when someone dies from natural causes or illness or disease. So who does all of that? What happens if you tell a Ben Crump, "Nah, man, get your ass out of here. We good. We know what you here for. And we ain't looking for that. We looking for justice." What happens? I wonder what I would really love to see what that conversation looks like as he's doing his pitch.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think about it now, Plug. Do you really need a Ben Crump? We got 6 million of them on YouTube. we got 6 million people who got all the answers on YouTube. You literally can pick a content creator you want to be your Ben Crump. Because some of these content creators are getting more move and more answers and more interviews than what Ben Crump is getting. So, what's your thoughts about this? Especially being a mother yourself, there, Miss Rain. What is your thoughts about this?
I think about it often. Even though my son's only 10, he's about to be 11. I think about it often because he's about to go. Once he starts driving, I think about it. Even though he's biracial, he looks black. I think about it. I think about how I'm gonna have to have that talk with him about what he needs to do if he's ever pulled over. I think that comes across my mind more often than not, actually, especially in doing things like this, being on here, talking about it actively, just knowing that the world will see him differently than I do, So it's tough.
Say that again.
The world will see him differently than I do.
And I think that's the biggest issue we have.
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue we have when we're covering 90% of these cases.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to have the answers and nobody wants to see the real side of what's really going on. That's why we don't like to stick to facts. We don't like to stick to the evidence of what we're being shown. It's because people don't understand that, right? Like that mother, Miss Nichols, is looking for answers. She's looking for justice. She's no longer on the hamster wheel of everybody speaking about her son because she did that for 3 years already.